For this pattern I'm using a spool of vintage Purcell's hot orange silk. For the rib I'm using orange mylar tinsel. For the head I'm using a single strand of peacock herl. For the eyes I'm using red mylar tinsel. For the hackle I'm using a speckled brown hackle taken from the shoulder of a grey partridge. To dress the fly, catching your tying silk directly behind the eye of the hook with 5 tight turns of silk. Trim off the waste end of silk with your scissors. And now take your red tinsel and mount it in directly behind the eye of the hook with 3 tight turns, bringing each turn of silk back towards the eye of the hook. Trim off the waste end of tinsel. And next take the second piece of tinsel and mount it in with 3 tight turns of silk. Bringing the turns of silk back away from the eye of the hook. Trim off the waste end of tinsel with your scissors. And now take a single strand of peacock herl and with your scissors trim off the brittle tip of herl. Next, taking the herl between your finger and thumb, mounting your peacock herl with another 3 tight turns of silk. Now taking your peacock herl in your fingers, wrap the herl to form a nice compact head to the fly. I normally take about 4 or 5 turns of herl. Once you're happy with the density of the herl head, simply come in with your tying silk and trap it down with 3 turns of silk before cutting away any excess stalk. Now take your tinsel and fold it back over the peacock herl head and catch it in with 2 tight turns of silk, ensuring that the tinsel lies flat over the peacock herl head. Next, take your second piece of tinsel and again fold it over the peacock herl head and catch it in with 3 turns of silk, again ensuring that the tinsel lies flat over the peacock herl. Now trim off both straight ends of tinsel. And now, taking your partridge hackle, simply fret the hackle fibres back to expose a small tying in tip. If you like a really sparse dressing, you can carefully strip off one side of the hackle before mounting it onto the hook directly behind the peacock herl head, here using 3 tight turns of silk. Take your scissors and trim off the waste end of the hackle tip. And now take your hackle pliers and wrap the hackle tight behind the herl head, taking 4 wraps of hackle. Now once you've wrapped your hackle, come in with your tying silk and bind down the hackle stalk with 3 tight turns of silk. If you have any stray hackle fibres, simply brush them forwards out of the way. And now taking your orange tinsel, trap it down with tight turns of silk proceeding down the hook shank to a point somewhere between the point of the hook and the end of the barb. Once you're happy with the body length of the fly, bring your tying silk back up the hook shank in tight touching turns to a point directly behind the hackle. Now taking the tinsel in your fingers, simply wrap the tinsel in tight open turns up the hook shank to form a nice ribbed and segmented body, finishing again directly behind the hackle. Now come in with your tying silk and bind down the tinsel with 3 tight turns of silk. Before trimming off the waste end of tinsel. Now taking your whip finish tool, come in and take 3 turns of whip finish directly behind the hackle. Trim off the silk. Ping the hook eye with your fingernail to separate the hackle fibres, and there you have Jim Wynn's orange partridge.